We're going to pivot to an interview, Ira, that we conducted yesterday that we did with Bob Davis, the co-founder of Rising Spear. Obviously, Rising Spear's made the news in the last week. But, for those of you that aren't very familiar with, the NIL collective scene, maybe that's not your world that you operate in. Yeah, the Battle's End's the most famous one because they handle all of the football players. In fact, they also do men's golf as well. But Rising Spear, from the inception, worked with football initially, but they've always had a nonprofit element to what they do in terms of community service and things like that. In addition to the pre-Battle's End, there was like a wing that was very much like the Battle's End before it broke off. But just some context, Ira, before we run the interview, is there anything that you want to set up here as we spoke to Bob Davis for over about 10 minutes here?
Yeah, I just think I reached out to him because, I saw some of the things that were being said about Rising Spear. There were a lot of questions. When the NCAA investigation came out last week and it was announced that Florida State was going to have some penalties based on a situation that happened with an employee of Rising Spear almost 2 years ago. There were questions about, okay, does this mean Rising Spear can't go on? Does this mean any of the staff were part of the investigation? How did this all happen? So we just really I just reached out to him on I guess Friday or Saturday. And I just said, hey, would you want to come on one of our shows and just answer questions about what you know about what happened and what's more importantly, what's going on from here? Because one of the questions we had a lot on our website was, if I've given to Rising Spear in the past because I want to support basketball or I want to support baseball or any of the other sports that are non-football, can I still do that? Should I still do that? And the answer is yes. Bob Davis talks about that, but he also talks about, the situation and kind of their role. It's kind of, again, I just think it's unfortunate. What happened. They are getting penalized for it. Florida State's getting penalized for it. It needs to happen. I'm not saying it's bad, but when you look at the landscape of what's happening in college sports, the fact that they got popped, the way they operate, and some of the things we talk about in the video is just some of the things that they do for the community and for these young athletes. It's unfortunate. So just want to give him a chance to kind of say whatever he wanted to say. And I thought it was a good conversation.
For those of you that think that NIL should serve a common good on top of the fact that players perhaps should capitalize on their name, image, and likeness, I think your vision, and you judge for yourself out there, but your vision will align with what you hear from Bob Davis. This first question that I asked him, it's his response to my first question, but it's dissociation's been thrown around, 1 year dissociation. Bob, does this mean that Rising Spear is something that is not in existence anymore? And here's his answer.
That's not the case at all, Tom. What the findings were is that we were disassociated from the athletic department for the period of 1 year. To us, and we haven't gotten clarification on that yet, but to us that means we cannot contribute to FSU athletics. The Rising Spear can't because we were an official sponsor of Florida State athletics. But other than that, we are entitled to operate just as we did, and our intention is to go forward just as we have to support as many student athletes as we can and make a difference in the local community.
We would go out to the Boys and Girls Clubs or different events that you guys were hosting, and you'd have Jared Verse and Jordan Travis and those guys playing with kids, and it was a way to supplement them because again, things have moved so fast. It's like we've forgotten kind of where things were. When NIL was introduced, athletes couldn't make any money outside of their scholarships. They couldn't, go have a free dinner. They couldn't endorse a restaurant. They couldn't do any of those things. So it was almost like what you guys started doing, and the original, I guess, NIL ideas were kind of in the lines with what people thought it was going to be, and then it kind of went into a different place. And it feels like this whole case was kind of something kind of in the middle of that. It seems like, and you could tell me, over the last year or so, have you guys kind of found your mission and what you got, what your place is in the NIL space, or do you feel like it's continually evolving?
Well, I think it will continually evolve just because they're going to come out with more and more regulations. We'll see if there's any national legislation that makes it fair for every school in the country, because right now there is no national legislation. So every school is governed by their state laws. And Some have no laws, some have strict laws. Florida was one of the first to adopt the laws, and ours were probably stricter than most states, so we've had to amend them. So I think that my business partner and I are comfortable with what we're doing. I think we're making a difference. And Ira, you mentioned going out to the Boys and Girls Clubs, and I can remember the very first time going out there because I was the only Rising Spear person in Tallahassee. And we had, as you said, Jared Verse and Jordan Travis and just a bunch of well-known kids out there. And that night I got a call from one of them, and it was, Mr. Davis, I just want to call and thank you for allowing me to go out to the Boys and Girls Club today. 4 years ago, I was one of those kids. And I think today I might have made the difference in somebody's life. And to me, that's exactly what we wanted to happen. It's grown the student athlete, it's benefited the community, and we're not interested in making student athletes rich people. We're interested in growing, helping student athletes grow as young men and women, as well as the community benefiting from their presence in our community.
Can you talk a little bit about Rising Spear and kind of the evolution? As you mentioned, when you first started, it was basically you and your partner, and you really didn't have a lot of support or help. And how has the organization grown? And how many? I think you mentioned over 100 athletes. If you could just speak a little bit specifically about what Rising Spear is today.
Sure. I served as national chairman the board of the Seminole Boosters for 2 years, and my business partner was on my executive committee as well. And we would sit in those executive committee meetings and talk about what this NIL creature was going to be, what it looked like, and is anybody at FSU going to get involved in that or related to FSU? And nobody seemed to be doing it. So we were encouraged, and we talked to each other, and we just decided nobody's doing it. We love FSU, and let's do this. So we did. We started Rising Spear, engaged a local law firm to help us with all the documents and incorporation papers and nonprofit stuff, and got it going. Had to go through compliance with FSU because we had used some names or were proposing some names that they didn't like. They thought it was associating with Florida State, and they didn't think that was legal at the time. Then we did the logo thing, and it had some spears and things in it that they thought were too much like the markings of Florida State. So we went through several gyrations of that. And then we finally got it all together. And, just at the beginning of 2022, we made our first deposit in the bank, and we were up and operating and making a difference. And, we had only one employee that we got in the spring of 2022 because he was somebody on our board had told us he was a very avid FSU fan and wanted to get involved in this space. And we spoke with him and gave him a position to start reaching out to donors and corporate sponsors to try to increase our revenues so we could increase the number of student athletes and community involvement that we could do. And so that's how it all started. It's since grown into several employees and probably 8 or 9 interns, that most of which have come from the graduate school of sports management. And they're all dedicated. They all love what they do. They love getting out with the student athletes and being out in the community. And it's exactly what we wanted and envisioned it to be.
I was going to say on that topic, though, so when you got into this, and Bob, I mean, people are watching this. I don't know what people's visions are of the NIL world. I don't know that you're the vision of what people think of the what's going on in the NIL space right now. So do you, and then what happened this past week, and now the Rising Spear is kind of at the middle of this first NCAA investigation, and as you said, you guys, nobody that's part of it now was part of that situation. I don't know, any misgivings about being in this space, or are you still committed to you personally being in this space and what you guys are doing?
No misgivings at all, Ira. What we're doing is exactly what we wanted to do. And as I said, I don't know of an organization that hasn't had some kind of issue to deal with, and we dealt with that. and I think we did the proper thing in dealing with it. It has not changed our focus. It has not changed anything. And until Thursday evening, we weren't even aware there was an issue. So this is all new to us. And, we will deal with the negative publicity that we've received and try to overcome it by just being open and honest with everybody.
The discussions that you have with the student athletes themselves, those that you've mentioned, one of the initial events and getting a phone call about the Boys and Girls Club, but I'm talking about the evolution into the different sports that Rising Spear now supports. What are you hearing from those student athletes specifically?
Well, Tom, I haven't gotten a negative comment from any student athlete about what we're doing and what we're getting them involved in. Only positive. A tremendous amount of positive feedback from the various coaching staffs. And let me say that FSU's entire coaching staff is truly focused in the right way. I mean, I've gotten to know them. I flew to Memphis to pick up Coach Norvell when he was hired. And I can tell you that every single coach that I've dealt with, their primary focus is helping these student athletes grow, develop, become citizens. And you don't see that at all universities. There's a lot of places that it's all about winning. And our fan base loves to win. But I can tell you, there's not a coach on our staff that isn't doing everything they can to properly develop these kids. They're thankful for what we're doing, particularly in the in the Olympic sports, because these kids wouldn't get the opportunity otherwise. And we're just proud, and we're proud that we're doing what we're doing, and we'll continue to do it.
Bob, I appreciate you really. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, and I know that this has been a difficult, 72 hours, or I guess a week now at this point, where having to deal with this publicly, but then also answer the questions. And there's so many rumors swirling around, and the question I got more than anything is, as Tom said from the beginning, is Rising Spear still active? Are they still going to be helping student athletes? Should we still be giving money to Rising Spear and contributing to those causes if we believe in them? So I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us. Is there anything else you wanted to say that we didn't bring up, or just any closing comments, I guess, to Florida State fans?
Yeah, Ira, let me just address about the negative comments we've received in social media. Rising Spear, and I can say this under oath if I need to, however I need to say it, Rising Spear was never asked to meet with the NCAA. The athletic department did not meet with us. They did not inform us of what was going on because they were advised not to. And my understanding is that the NCAA reached out to the booster, and he did not return their phone calls or communicate with them. So, Rising Spear we're discouraged that we didn't know all this was going on until Thursday night when the public learned it was all going on. We got no advance notice at all. I spelled out in a memo exactly what I think happened, and I think we handled it the right way. I can't speak about what the coaching staff did or anybody else did, but again, I'm proud of Rising Spear. I'm proud of everything we've done, and we faced a problem and we dealt with it, and we continued on, and we're helping student athletes and the community.
Bob, thank you very much for your time and continued success with Rising Spear.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. Thank you, Ira.